Hey everybody, welcome to G4G here on YouTube. I'm your host, Napalm Dawn. Today's background soundtrack is brought to you by some Metroid music, which hopefully won't be ridiculously distracting. I feel it might be. I may have to fix that. So, I just wanted to go ahead and give you guys an update on what is happening with MAAR Redux, and as I say that, I'm going to lower the glorious Metroid music slightly. So, Goofytroll put a long post out on Discord last week and also put it out on the MAAR Redux group. And I'm going to go ahead and discuss this information with you guys as it asks a lot of questions that the community asks rather regularly, and this hopefully should answer a lot of the functional questions or the procedural questions of the game over here. This way, hopefully by knowing this information, if you're not on Discord or on the Facebook group, I can provide it to you guys since these are common questions. So to begin with, allies. There's going to be 52 allies. Tony Stark will be free initially. 50 will be unlocked by leveling up, and one is going to be an Easter egg that you can unlock. Only one other person in the community knows who and how to unlock this ally. He'll be unlockable from the start. Collecting from allies can be done one of two ways. First is the traditional way, where each item has the same percentage of appearance for each of the 4 collected per ally. Second will be a collect all feature, so for those of you who use leet hacks, that's pretty much what that is. I never used it because I didn't trust the gray area of it, and I know leet hacks was more of a time saver thing than a cheat engine, but I really wanted to stay on the up and up, so I stayed away from it. The route will land you one each of 3 specific items: silver, SP, or ISO 8 once the Spec Ops is unlocked. Remember, Spec Ops, I do believe, stay permanently, so maybe ISO 8 will simply be an uncolored resource and you just go through the Spec Ops until you're done and then move on to another one. And one random based on the same table is normal, collecting from each ally you have. Flight deck staffing. All allies are unlocked. As all allies are unlocked, you'll gain access to more slots and higher level planes. You still need to pay the cost and the wait time for each to be unlocked. PvP is going to be called PvAI, PV, or Versus. The ranks will remain the same, with the rewards being the same as well, though you will get the rewards as you rank up. To rank up, you'll have to win a select number of battles per rank, initially 5. This number will grow around 1 every other season. The teams are in the process of being set up, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Initially, the teams will be split into groups of 5 per rank for 5 ranks, 1 to 5 in rank 1, 6 to 10 2, so on and so forth. For each new season, 5 new teams will be added to the back of the list, and the ranks will be recreated based on the number of teams in total. So for Season 2, rank 1 will be 1 to 6. Previously it was 1 to 5. And so on and so forth. You can kind of get the gist how he goes there. Losing will only cost you the time to play the battle and recoup the battle points used to play the battle. So in other words, you're not going to get attacked. You don't have to set a defensive team because there is not an online component of it. So it's similar to MAE2, where you only had issues if you attacked and lost. Your defense never took their wins and losses and put it into your ranking. However, in this, if you do lose, you're not going backwards. You're just losing that PvP energy that you spent. People creating the teams are using old videos by yours truly, Yay, and Kingfisher, and others. Now, I will say this, I can't really be a very good source for early PvPs and everything. You definitely have to go to people like CJ Edwards and Kingfisher, maybe even Inhuman Beatdown. Somebody mentioned a Click Skills video. That's how you want to tackle those. I did a lot of later seasons, and then when the season was over, because I was always streaming in that last hour, I always took the last hour and packaged it and sent it to YouTube as wrap-up video. So if you want like the last 2 years or so, I can help out, but not in those early days of like when Ghost Rider was invincible and you could ghost tank and stuff like that. The people creating these teams, blah blah blah, ISO setup team member levels will initially be random based on the player, but this may change. PvP lockboxes. Heroes will become covert ops tasks. They will run separately from other covert ops. They will unlock with the corresponding PvP season. The task list still needs to be made. Upon completion of the covert ops, you will receive enough LBs to guarantee you 6 to 6.5 covers. If you're unlucky, you will either have to purchase more LBs or wait until you can get them from the roulette. Mind you, Goofy is probably capable of manipulating the percentages, the gambling of this, and actually making the code be a 1-to-1 thing. So if you remember, roulette was 9 squares, and you thought you had a 1 in 9 chance to get an item. That was not true. The best item in there maybe only had a 1 in 50 chance, while the lesser items were tiered. So there was maybe a mid-tier where it was 1 in 25, and then there was a shit tier where it was maybe like 1 in 10 or 1 in 5. So I do believe Goofy is aiming to have everything on the roulette square be 1 in 9, kind of like you visually think it is. Also, don't forget, in case you never noticed, when you spun a roulette back in the day, the moment you clicked spin, the reward was already determined and locked in. What you saw from the whole slot machine mechanic was basically for your graphic pleasure. The roulette was ribbed for your pleasure, but not really. People always had that epiphany moment, including myself, when maybe you had a task to get something, like a drop from a roulette, and as soon as you clicked to spin the roulette, you would see your counter go up by 1, even though the square was still moving and it wasn't done spinning. Everybody's gone through that, believe me, and everybody kind of just makes fun of you for when you finally realize it, because it's something the whole community knew, but nobody really ever outwardly stated unless they came across it, like I did. I was like, oh my god, Alliance Wiki, look what happened. They're like, yeah, we know, everybody knows, shut up. Oops. Group bosses. With the loss of real-life allies, you will only be fighting your GB solo. As such, a few changes need to be made. You will still be rewarded for the lockbox for every 5% damage in one battle, and 10 LBs for defeating your own group boss. But as an added bonus, you will receive additional lockboxes for every 25% of the base health done in a single battle. A total of 20 LBs will be rewarded for hitting all 4 marks, and of course the 100% mark can only be achieved on the initial playthrough each time the GB regenerates. So he's saying that you're getting rewarded for those crazy teams that punch a boss out from 100 to 0, like the old drain stats method, where you passively don't attack him so he never starts his round timer, and then you just drain him, build yourself up, and then you like 2-shot him. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know what version of the teams will be in effect for the group bosses, because if you remember at the end, some of the exploit teams were nerfed. I think it was like people were shitting all over Kingpin, and then they made that massive change where Kingpin was just a fat slob that took all the damage in the world, and you were like, oh my god, I can't even poke him in the eye anymore. This is ridiculous. I don't know. That's a very valid question that we need answered. Will older style teams work, or will it be the newer, more modern method where you kind of had some issues doing the major punch-outs? Unlocking of PvP, Spec Ops, and Covert Ops. These parts of the game will unlock as you progress through the main story based on the original release dates of the material. SOs will be playable at any time, in any order. Covert Tasks PvP will require playthrough in order to unlock. So this kind of reminds me like when you start a mobile game and how certain aspects of the mobile game are locked until you get to a certain level of like the main story. You have to PvP only when you reach level 10. and maybe like a building mechanic or a village city mechanic only unlocks at like 20 or something. That's what this reminds me of, and it kind of makes sense. A bonus hard mode that he's considering will be adding a timer, so you'll have a set amount of time to complete each feature. Once you complete it or it expires, you'll unlock further features. So I hope that answers a lot of the questions that have been coming up about this. It kind of gives you an idea of what they are planning. Now, what I'm going to do after I scroll back down to the bottom is I'm going to do a search for PvP AI, I believe should give us or PvAI maybe? Player versus AI? There are some documents here that you guys would like to see. So basically, these documents define the team. No, okay, hold on one second. I wrote it down, what I need to search for over here. Or, okay, in case I didn't. Okay, let me scroll up a little bit. I'll know the links when I see them over here. They're uploaded text documents, and in the text documents, they are going to be the list of teams that you will be facing when you do the PvAI. And essentially the guy who uploaded these documents did research as to what were popular teams of the time. Here it is. And of course it wants to open in Firefox. Hopefully I can open it in line rather than have to download it. Now I'm going to have to download it. Okay. So, this is what we're looking at. So, from January 11 to 2013 to February 4 of 2013, when we emulate that particular PvP session, one team you will fight, as conducted by the AI, will be Phoenix 5 Emma Frost, Phoenix 5 Cyclops, a Generalist Trenchcoat, who'll be running the Quantum Jumper, the Dark Sigil, the CMFG, and the Scroll of Bologna Bob. Another team would be Quicksilver, Colossus, and the Phoenix 5 Bruiser. The Agent will be an Infiltrator Power Armor. He'll have the Hoarfrost Mace, the Monstrosity, the Nanite Inductive Gun, or the Nin Gun, and again, the Scroll of Bologna. So this is essentially what the AI teams are going to be that you have to fight. And this guy's goal was to emulate the PvP teams of the time in that season. So essentially you'll be doing a time warp where you will be going back in time and fighting teams that you would see at the beginning of the game. So if you did not play at that time and you're like, man, I would have loved to have seen when this happened, you'll actually be able to get to experience it firsthand. I was not more than a diamond player for a very, very long time. I mean, in the beginning I was like Iron Fist and Iron Man and Captain America and Human Torch, and I called the teams like Up the Irons was Iron Man, Iron Fist, it's a nod to Iron Maiden, and the Torch of Liberty was Captain America and the Human Torch, and nothing was worse than a Human Torch battle until maybe it was like the Agent versus Rescue or Rescue versus Rescue. But anyway, that's what's going on now. I put forth an idea recently that maybe in one of the Spec Ops we could touch upon the Cancerverse. So I had a very interesting conversation the other day about the Cancerverse. In investigating Adam Warlock and how the plot of the original Infinity War went in the comic books, I had come across the Cancerverse and was interested in reading about it because in my brain I was kind of confusing it with the Mojoverse. And Cancerverse sounds like a very, very interesting, an interesting realm to talk about. I think it's like Earth 1011 is the Cancerverse or something. And it strikes me as an interesting place to do a Spec Ops. So now, the last topic that I wanted to cover in this is one that unfortunately a lot of the admins, including myself in the comments of videos and seeing both the Discord and my videos and the Facebook, all of them, we discuss a lot of ideas, and some of them are like very, very off the wall. And I wanted to point out a couple of things about that. This is a game that is now being produced by your everyday coders. These are not being produced by, somebody who works for Playdom or EA, or, we're not doing this in the Unity engine or the Unreal engine and everything like that. So everything we think of, everything that comes out of our brains has to have corresponding art, has to have corresponding sprites drawn and animations and everything like that. So another thing we have to think of is what is going to be the unifying idea in the community of how that person should be represented. And I wanted to take Legion as an example, because Legion is in Season 2 on Fox right now. Great show, Tuesday nights. Here's Legion as how he was represented around the time of the original Marvel Universe handbook, okay? But we also know that Legion right now is represented by a TV series. If you go back even further, Legion has been represented slightly differently the whole way through, and unfortunately I clicked a lot of these. Okay, so here are other depictions of Legion. A little bit more modern, a little less tall and gangly, and just almost like Killing Joke, Jokerish. So if somebody's like, yeah, let's add Legion to the game, this is what we all have to think of. We have to think of, does he look like the TV show? Does he look like this guy? Does he look like the very first picture I showed? What are going to be the abilities? And then you have to think of the AI. Then you have to think of the stats. Then you have to think, well, if he's going to have dialogue in the game, we need art. We need art in the game to represent him when he's talking. We need a sprite. The sprite needs to be animated in pieces. I mean, here again, here's another representation of him. So every time you think like, oh, let's get Silver Surfer, oh, let's get Namor, oh, let's get Homecoming Spider-Man and everything, people have to flush that out. You can have an idea, but then who's going to animate it? Who's going to do the art? Who's going to set the abilities? Who's going to set the stats? Who's going to set the class? Who is going to set the AI behavior? That's a huge thing. Let me tell you, let me remind you of what the game was like when it came to the AI. Sometimes the AI was so ridiculously set in stone, if you block that character from doing something, they recharged. And I want to give you an example. I brought this up recently, and this is the one I always give for this. Deadpool. Deadpool's first ability was melee, and as you remember, Deadpool buffed himself by doing his 1, his 2, his 4, his 9. Or 6, 9, I forget. 1, 2, 4, 9? That sounds right. 1, 2, 6 sounds too big. And he always jumped in with that melee attack first. If you hit him with the bubblegum gun, the adhesive X launcher, or Nico's stick to it, he didn't try and do one of his other abilities. He recharged, because that's what the AI told him to do. It said you will always do your level 1 the first chance you get. Now, not a stun, because if you stunned him, he would just do it the next time he had his turn. But if you locked out his melee, his AI literally shit the bed and could not understand what to do. So that's something that has to be programmed into the game. And from a non-coding perspective that I have, that sounds like it's a tremendous amount of work. A lot of crazy if-then statements, and maybe you don't want to code it that way. Maybe you don't want to code it that Deadpool says, I can't do my level 1, I should do my level 2. It kind of breaks his flow, so individually Goofy or somebody has to decide how is the AI going to work in this particular case. And all of that comes into these ideas, and to me I think one of the worst things about this is having to do sprites and do the animation for it, because you're essentially creating a full body, and then you are disassociating parts of the body. I mean, like, okay, here, this is what I was hoping to find. Here's Rogue going through her animations and everything. If you don't want it to look like a blocky piece of shit, and this is what I meant about the broken body parts, like, these parts had to be broken up so that they can be animated in color. You can see here in the upper left. Yeah, sure. Goofy could put out a game that literally has Rogue doing an ability. She's at her default state, and then she moves forward, and then damage goes out. But that's, that's garbage. And that dishonors the legacy of the game. So you have to have proper animation along the way. Otherwise, it just looks janky. And that takes a lot of effort. I mean, look at the YouTube videos of Overwatch animations. To make it flow, if you stop Overwatch animations at a certain point, like 2 of McCree's ultimates, it looks weird. He looks like Mr. Fantastic. He's pulling his gun out of his holster, and meanwhile his arm is like way far away, but the gun's in the holster, and it looks rubbery. That's really, really good animation. So this stuff requires work, and if you invent a character that is not in the game, or is not a simple reskin, or re-armor, that is a tremendous amount of work. I mean, yeah, I would love to see Firestar, if I can speak as the 7-year-old boy who had a crush on a cartoon from the Amazing Spider-Man show. People want to see Silver Surfer, people want to see Namor, we probably want to see Sheriff Deadpool in here or something. I mean, this game had good animations and good art, except for when Loki would disappear. I mean, here's Sif. Sif had an amazing butt in this game. Killer games on this one. We need this kind of quality, and just remember that when you think about crazy characters to add in the game and everything like that. We need to have somebody who can actually draw the art, draw the sprites, do the animation, and, set everything correctly. Ability art is probably one of the easier ones, I think, to tackle, but we need to make sure that we stick to the quality of the original game, because I know what it was like to use Psylocke's level 1 in that game, and how it was very interesting because it started as an upward swipe instead of down, and the sound was just so meaty and visceral as she took that swipe and everything. So I mean, the last thing we want to do is invent a character that just has poo art. I mean, here, that's Colossus from Marvel Contest of Champions with the Juggernaut outfit on. That's good. Like, we didn't have that in the game, but if that was his sprite, that's good. But now you have to go beyond that, and you have to adapt this into all of his punch abilities and his tanking abilities and everything like that. So, here's a Sentinel. Again, looks decent as a sprite, but now let's animate that. And, Nightwing, give me a break. Yeah, we're not doing DC stuff. But, that's a Captain Steve Rogers looking Wolverine over there. That's a pretty good Crossbones sprite. But again, we have to set the animation, and somebody has to do the artwork if he ever has a speaking portion of the game. So that's all I really wanted to say about that. Like, here's an example of art that was, I don't think, ever in the game, Dazzler. That's not too bad. That's relatively believable. If I saw that, I'd be like, okay, this is high quality, so, you know, that's what you need from this game when you think of things. So don't overshoot the moon when you think about characters for this game. Don't think about huge flights of fancy that are going to be impossible to draw and art. I just want to, you know, I want to keep everybody grounded, and I would really caution everybody when they're getting their hopes up about the game to get the game in your hands first, the way that it was when it died, then worry about a lot of these other, not you, Islay, but like any of the other characters and everything that we talk about. I mean, my idea of the Cancerverse, one of the iconic representations of the Cancerverse is a very, very beat up looking Colossus and decayed Colossus, which you can see here and you can see here. Like, I would imagine that would be tough as hell to do that if you were somehow representing him in game. That would be a tough edit of a sprite to pull off, and, you know, tough art. I mean, look at this. This doesn't look too bad, as is mostly red-eyed, but I mean, Captain America kind of looks like Knight America there. Scarlet Witch is really messed up. Thor looks like a zombie. Captain Marvel looks like a Dungeon Keeper vixen. So yeah, I mean, even I understand, like, I lightly floated the idea of this, but this is an incredible amount of work to do this. I mean, this is like Cthulhu Mythos level stuff over here. That takes a lot of effort for art and sprite and animations and everything. So there you go, guys. I just wanted to catch you up on what's happening since Goofy answered a lot of questions. If you do plan on joining the Discord or the MAA Redux, please, please do not ask the stupid questions all over. Do not ask when it's coming out. Do not talk about money or pay. None of that. Just don't ask, like, is it going to have Union Jack? Is it going to have Psylocke and blah, blah, blah? What are we going to have in it? Who are the characters? Just do a little research. Watch some of my videos on it. Camp out in the Facebook or the Discord for a little bit. Absorb the knowledge as it goes by. And just lurk a little bit. And, like, don't go crazy. And don't be like, are we going to have movie Thanos in there? Yeah, we might. It might even be playable or as a lockbox, because believe it or not, well, I wouldn't consider this a spoiler, but this isn't about the movie, it's about what happens after the movie. If you don't want a spoiler, just cut it off now, but Nebula gets the Infinity Gauntlet, and Thanos helps the heroes get it back, because Nebula's even pulling some shit with the Shumagarath. Man, remember the games he used to be part of? Yeah, so they have to get it back from Nebula, so you could conceivably make Thanos a lockbox. And that's DC stuff. Yeah. So, don't forget about that, guys. Just chill out, don't bug anybody, don't ask the stupid questions, hang out, absorb knowledge, and, you know, get your hopes up for the game, but all the extra stuff that's not in the game yet, let the game come out as a beta or an alpha and get tested, then we'll worry about the extras. Hope you enjoyed the video, everybody. Peace out, and I'll see you next time.